Today, we're turning you into a multi-dimensional super being. You'll be able to be anywhere and any place at any time you want. Walk through walls on a whim, melt through the steel doors of a bank vault, and just take what you want. That doesn't sound legal. But that stuff is just child's play compared to what you can really do. You can see through anything. As you walk past a stranger in the street, you notice something. You turn back, reach into their body, and remove a cancerous tumor, saving their life. For a little R&R, you sip margaritas and watch the ancient Egyptians build their pyramids in a time lapse. Their secrets are interesting, but you're already on to bigger adventures. You stand at the center of the sun just to see what it looks like in there and to work on your tan. You surf the rings of Saturn. You defy physics as we know it and travel throughout the universe, instantly appearing on planets millions of light years away. In terms of capabilities, you are so far above the old mythical gods and their cheap tricks. Compared to gods like Zeus, who only controlled thunder and lightning, you make them look like ants. You see through time. You understand and control everything in our three-dimensional world. Okay, enough. At this point, you're probably wondering, how did I get these powers? And why is this so awesome? Well, to understand your new life as a four-dimensional super being, I'm going to have you relive every single dimension you came up through. But don't let this 4D business go to your head. 4 dimensions are only the start. Compared to being in the 5th, 6th, or even 12th dimension, you're an inchworm trapped on a 2-dimensional branch. Okay, to understand dimensions, let's take you back to 0. Yeah, you're now in a place where there are no dimensions at all. A single dot that has no space, no size. Even a pencil mark on a piece of paper has a thickness and dimensions, but where you are right now is just a theoretical point. Now, from your position in a 0-dimensional space, you would see nothing, and there would be no place to go. So it's pretty boring as far as dimensions go. But add 1 dimension, and we upgrade you to a 1-dimensional space. Now you live on a line. In this line universe, you'd only be aware of the line ahead of you and the line behind you, nothing else. In fact, you'd be looking at the line head on, so it would just look like a dot ahead of you and a dot behind you. In theory, you could go forward along the line forever, but that's it. Let's call this length. It's slightly more exciting than 0 dimensions, but not by much. Add yet another dimension, and now you live in a world with another line at a right angle to the first one. You exist on a surface now. This is width, something I'm learning a lot more about as I get older. Now you can go forward, backward, or in any combination of these 2 directions. You can slide around on the surface as much as you like, but there's no thickness to this world. It's perfectly flat. As you move around with your newfound freedom in this 2D world, you would see everything edge on. Everything would look like a line. In 2 dimensions, a circle would appear just as a line, the length of its diameter. The only reason a representation of a 2-dimensional circle appears to look like a circle is because, as 3-dimensional beings, we look at it from above. Yeah, being 1 dimension up from any other dimension automatically gives any being godlike powers over that lesser dimension. If a 3-dimensional being wanted to imprison you in your 2-dimensional world, all they'd have to do is draw a line around you. No matter what you did, you couldn't escape. You couldn't step over that line. There's no up, no down, no over or under for you. And unfortunately for you, you've come down with a life-threatening case of appendicitis while visiting the 2D world. But even worse, your 2D doctor has a hard time finding your appendix because they have to look through you edgewise to find it. And if they do find it, well, they'll have to cut through you to get at it. But you don't have to worry because a three-dimensional doctor comes to your rescue. Because you're perfectly flat, you have no layers. So a three-dimensional doctor looking down on you can see everything that is you. They can clearly see your appendix, and they don't even have to pierce any skin to remove it. They just pluck it out. For you, it would just disappear, but when a 3D doctor comes to visit you in your 2D world, that's when things get really weird, because a three-dimensional being visiting a two-dimensional world would appear as only a cross-sectional slice of them. The 3D doctor would appear out of nowhere to you, a line of varying width, and then disappear into thin air as they pass through. It'd be like seeing magic or being haunted by a ghost. But you don't have to think about it for very long because you're getting another major upgrade. Yeah, we're giving you the dimension that makes us who we are. The third dimension, depth. Suddenly, the world opens up to you. You're back in familiar territory. Objects have volume and mass. And we can see this volume. A circle can be a sphere, and you can see all around it, and hold it, and throw it, because it can also move in three directions. Plus, it contains space, volume for stuff to be inside of it. Now, if you had appendicitis here in 3 dimensions, well, that same doctor who saved you back in the 2-dimensional world would have to look through you using X-rays to examine your appendix. And if they wanted to remove it, well, they'd have to cut through all your layers to get at it. You should really boost your fiber intake. You're getting appendicitis a lot. Now, if we wanted to imprison you in a 3-dimensional world, we'd need a cube. Trapped inside, you can move up, down, right, left, any combination of those, but you're not getting out of this cube. Part of why we love the 3-dimensional world is because we're a product of it. It's our home. But without all 3 of our familiar dimensions, it's arguable that literally nothing as we understand it or experience it would exist. It's also why it's a big leap for us to step outside of it. So, take one last look at your comfortable 3-dimensional world because you're about to leave it for some very unfamiliar territory and godlike powers. Okay, here we are at the edge of our perceptions, and you're about to take a jump into a dimension beyond anything you've ever known, the 4th dimension. But what does that mean? Well, there are a few different ways to look at dimensions. One way is through the lens of physics. Now, first, you might be surprised that as far as physics is concerned, you're already a 4th dimensional being, and you don't even realize it. Yeah, Einstein theorized that time is the 4th dimension. And time is something we're all very familiar with. If 3 dimensions give us volume, then time gives us events. If time didn't exist, nothing would happen, or everything would happen, but all at the same moment. We live in 3 dimensions, but we move in time. Meet you at the gym? Well, that's a location in space, but if I say, meet you at the gym at noon, then that's a location in space and time. Also, if I say meet you at the gym at noon, count how many appendages I have, because you're likely talking to an alien. Now, we might be creatures of this 4th dimension, but we don't have access to time. Except for Marty McFly and Doc Brown, we happen to be very terrible time travelers. In fact, it seems like we are trapped by time, unable to change speed or direction. We're stuck going in one direction and traveling at the more or less constant speed of 1 second per second. That is, unless you're accelerating. Einstein's theory of relativity opens up a whole host of interesting time travel options. If you watched Interstellar, well, you'd know that accelerating and being in deep gravity affect the rate at which you experience time. relative to an outside observer. As you sink deeper into gravity, you slow down, crawling through time like you're trapped in slow motion. Now, if you wanted to time travel, you could hitch a ride on an ever-accelerating rocket ship around a black hole and pop back to Earth. The journey for you might only take an hour, but you could wind up thousands of years in the future. Good luck getting close enough to a black hole, though. Now, in our everyday lives, we experience time like a movie, exposed to slices or frames of time as we move forward, never being able to see beyond the present and only remembering the past by storing it in our memories. So, let's give you access to the fourth dimension of time. Now, you can see everything that's happened before and everything that's going to happen in the future. You can see the timeline. You hold it in your hands like a strip of film. You can scroll up and down through it. You can go to any spot in the film strip at will. Now, if we tried to trap you inside that cube from earlier, well, you could simply just move to a time either before or after you were trapped in the cube, or before the cube even existed, or long after it was destroyed. Now, you have access to a new dimensional direction. You could appear and disappear anywhere. And also, knowing what has happened before and what is about to happen would give you amazing powers. Like, if you were in university, well, just go forward in time, check the answers to the test, and write them down. Boom, A+ every time. Yeah, well, that might sound awesome, but what's the value of a university education when just playing the lottery and getting mega rich would be a no-brainer? You just have to zip into the future, look up the winning numbers, and skip back in time to play them and collect your winnings. No job or degree needed. But really, what's the point of money if you can just go back in time and alter the deed to any house or boat or anything and just make it yours to begin with? The world is your oyster. Or is it? You see, time travel might have some serious complications. There are two main schools of thought about it. In the first case, you see an accident happen. A car hits a pedestrian. Of course, you step back in time and stop that person from stepping out into traffic, saving their life. But now, that person goes on to become a careless scientist and makes a virus that wipes out humanity. Or on a whim, you travel to ancient Egypt to unlock the secrets of how the pyramids were built. You're careful not to be noticed or to touch anything, but you accidentally kill a mosquito that lands on your arm. Because of you, that poor mosquito never gets the chance to spread the malaria it carries, subtly altering the course of Egyptian civilization. Then, 2,000 years later, the Egyptians defeat the Romans instead of the other way around. And Rome collapses centuries earlier, and history is changed forever. Boom, you're speaking Danish. Du er velkommen. Every person you interact with, every lottery you win, every step you take changes the timeline. It's called the butterfly effect, and it makes time travel a messy proposition. As a four-dimensional time-traveling being, you see these changes ripple out from you as you go across time. But what if the timeline isn't changeable? Determinism says that nothing can be truly changed because the outcome of everything is already set. After all, if you can see the future, then it's already set. In this case, you've always been the fourth dimensional traveler that you've become, and everything you do has already been done. Nothing's new. You can travel up and down the timeline of human history, geological history, cosmic history, and everything you do and see has already happened. Controlling time could be the most amazing curse you've ever received. Or it could just be a Disney Express pass to the best ride in the universe, but one you only get to watch and not interact with. But what if we look at the fourth dimension through the lens of geometry? What about the physical fourth dimension? Oh, four-dimensional physical space is a mathematical description of space beyond 3 dimensions. If length is perpendicular to width and depth is perpendicular to both length and width, then this new direction is perpendicular to all 3. Think of a 3D cube. No, I'm not trying to imprison you again. If you take 4D geometric space and project it out from every corner of that 3-dimensional cube, well, that's a 4D hypercube called a tesseract. And it looks like a cube inside a cube. But that's only a 3-dimensional representation of 4-dimensional space, a shadow of the reality. It's actually impossible to accurately represent 4D physical space unless we're already in the 4th dimension. But you can see it, because we're upgrading you. Say goodbye to the constraints of the physical world, and welcome to your new life as a 4-dimensional super being. By the standards of our 3-dimensional space, you now have the powers of a god. The first thing you'd notice as a 4-dimensional being is that you could look back on our 3-dimensional world and see everything. Nothing would be hidden from you. To you, our layers would be flattened out and easily accessible, in the same way that we would see all the layers of a 2D being. You can walk into the most secure bank in the world and see right through the concrete and steel-encased vaults. Your access to the 4th dimension would allow you to just slide through any wall. You can just step in and help yourself. Safety deposit boxes are now just open trays waiting for you. Jewels, stacks of money, gold bars. You take what you want. But this is all just Dollar Tree stuff. Inspired by your newfound powers, you zip over to the Smithsonian Museum of Natural History, walk through the door, melt through the security systems, and grab the Hope Diamond. Hey, it looks good on you.
Hey, stop!
Someone shouts at you to stop. You've been spotted. You might be a 4-dimensional being, but you're not invisible. Just as a 3D object passing through a 2D world would appear like a line that varies in length depending on the width of the object at the point of intersection, to us, if a 4D being or object intersected with our world, we'd only see a 3D slice of it. We wouldn't be able to see or experience the whole object. Part of it would be obscured because we only see in 3 dimensions. So the museum guards aren't even sure what they're seeing. They only see a ghostly slice of you moving through their reality, appearing instantly and disappearing just as fast. They wouldn't know what was happening. Regardless, they draw their guns. Now, what would a 3-dimensional bullet do to a 4-dimensional being? Well, even if it happened to hit the slice of you that the guards saw, the damage would be minor, like a 2-dimensional bullet with absolutely no thickness passing through your 3-dimensional hand. Or you could just step aside and leave the bullet back in 3-dimensional space. But if for some reason you were caught and the police tried to trap 4-dimensional you inside the same cube, or in this case, jail cell, you would just move in your new 4-dimensional direction and slide right through those iron bars. You'd be unstoppable. Money, access, any restriction anywhere, gone. Want to visit the King of England? Well, walk right up to him. Want to eat lunch in the Oval Office? Grab a couple Big Macs and enjoy. Another cool feature of your new powers? When you look down, you can see everything underground. Yeah, at a glance, you'd be able to map oil deposits deep inside the earth, pick out seams of gold trapped in rock, and find every buried treasure that's ever been lost to time and the tides. Now, our human society is built upon privacy and access to information, but you could sit in on any conversation, reach into any locked drawer, or slide into any high security setting. Corporate plans, state secrets, nothing would be beyond your reach. You would instantly be the most powerful being on the planet. Slipping in and out of the 3rd dimension, you could change the course of world events any way you wanted. But now, You're so rich and powerful that material possessions quickly lose all their meaning. So you turn your attention to other powerful things that you can achieve with your powers. Just like the three-dimensional surgeon could see all of the two-dimensional you, well, you've now harnessed the power of the fourth dimension. You could see right through any three-dimensional person. Looking through a 3D person, you see every organ, every bone, and even deeper, every process and cell. You're able to diagnose at a glance. You spot a cancerous tumor, reach in and remove it. And you're able to do it without even making an incision. To us, mere three-dimensional beings, you'd appear as a series of mysterious events. Unexplainable phenomena to scientists, ghostly magic to others, and to some, miracles from above. From the vantage of your fourth dimension, you spend your days appearing in our world as a friendly ghost, leaving behind a trail of medical cures and world-changing interventions. Now, despite your powers over our dimension, you'd have to live by the rules of the fourth dimension. But there's another dimension. Just as it's a mental stretch for us to imagine a fourth dimension, it gets increasingly hard to imagine what a fifth dimension would look and feel like. But we do know that with every additional dimension, you would be entirely, completely changing your ability to see into the previous dimensions. Just like a 3D being possesses godlike powers to a 2D being, and a 4D being appears like a god to us, a fifth dimensional being would have unimaginable powers inside the 4D world. So we can guess that as a fifth dimensional being, you'd be able to look back on the fourth dimension and see it completely. Nothing from the fourth dimension would be hidden from you, and you'd be able to trap your four-dimensional self in a four-dimensional cage. But going forward from here, we're gonna need a bigger brain. This is where the limits of our perceptual common understanding end. Above the fourth dimension, things get really strange. Now, space isn't necessarily expanding at this point. It's folding in on itself. We're getting into the realm of subatomic geometries, theoretical shapes and dimensions that some believe could underlie our reality and everything we perceive. And some say the progression is this. The fifth dimension represents a branching out point between parallel universes. Every quantum decision that could go differently does go differently in an adjacent fifth dimensional slice. The sixth dimension is the space of all possible histories of all possible universes with the same starting conditions as ours. And in the seventh, well, universes with different starting conditions entirely, different laws of physics, different constants. Dimensions 8, 9, and 10 are said to describe the full landscape of every possible universe that could mathematically exist. And if you could travel freely through all of them, you'd be a multiverse jumping superbeing. You'd travel to the core of the sun just to see what it was like, and then travel to every version of the sun in every color at every point in time that it ever existed and didn't exist. You'd surf the rings of Saturn, then visit the rings of Earth, and then visit the universe where every planet in our solar system is Earth. Jump to another galaxy millions of light years away in an instant. Geometry and physics become the same thing. You can exist anywhere, anytime, any reality. It's a breathtaking idea. But there's just one problem. None of that is what the extra dimensions actually are. The reality is far less cinematic and, in its own way, far more strange. String theory is a mathematical framework that describes the fundamental fabric of the universe as vibrating one-dimensional strings. And this theory requires extra dimensions to function. Without additional geometric directions for those strings to vibrate into, the quantum calculations just break down. But These dimensions aren't vast cosmic corridors leading to parallel universes. They're almost incomprehensibly small, curled up around themselves at scales so tiny they may never be directly observed. Not gateways to other realities, but seams in the fabric of space itself. Now, if you decide to follow theoretical physics down the rabbit hole, there's even more. Bosonic F theory proposes a 28-dimensional theory. And here's the fun part. It's 26 directional dimensions and 2 time dimensions. Imagine going along your timeline forward and backward and then taking a left. These are just our theories today, but there's no telling what the reality actually is. Though string theory has a lot of contemporary support, no theory has been completely proven. So there could be 30, 5,000, or infinite dimensions. What would you even be like after transiting through so many dimensions? What does it feel like to be a being with access to infinite dimensions? Dimension after dimension, you'd shed the perceptions of the previous one, gaining new perspectives and powers over the previous dimensions every time. Now, at the top of the dimensional ladder, you can access everything, every creation, every planet, every timeline, every multiverse, and you see and understand everything at the same exact moment. The further up the ladder you go, the less like a superbeing you actually become, and the more you mesh with our concept of reality. All outcomes already exist for you. There are no choices to be made because they've all already been made. And there's no cause, no effect. All meaning would cease to exist for you. Even the concept of all-powerful, all-knowing doesn't make sense anymore. You're more like a fundamental particle at this point, traveling through incredibly complex packets of foldable space. Now, the completely multi-dimensional version of you and that theoretical zero-dimensional point we talked about at the beginning are somehow the same. Strange, isn't it? How everything and nothing meet in a single unified point. You've reached dimensional enlightenment and explored all of space and time. Incredibly, though, there's something that exists outside of dimensions and physics, and it might be found if we travel to a time before time began, before the Big Bang. But that's a story for another What If.